take me off child support, baby.
Mr. Adams, you done come to the wrong courtroom clowning. This is not a joke. It's nothing to dance about. It's nothing to laugh about. Your future was on the line. Now you should be ashamed of yourself.
Ms. Murphy claimed that after having a short and brief relationship with Mr. Miles, she got pregnant, and things took a turn for the worse. She claimed he was refusing to accept the child because Mr. Miles had another woman in his corner and was not ready to lose the relationship. She opened her case like this.
Ms. Murphy, you claim you had a short, passionate relationship with the defendant, Mr. Miles, and then you became pregnant. Mr. Miles, you argue that the only person you're trying to forget is Ms. Murphy.
Yes, Your Honor.
I mean, that has to be very hurtful. Why would he refer to her child as a boy? Well, it only gets worse from there on. The judge asked Ms. Murphy what had happened when she broke the news to Mr. Miles that she was pregnant. As you would expect, he denied the child her face.
But he won't acknowledge that at all.
What happened when you told him you were pregnant?
He said, I don't want you to have this baby. This is not okay. I don't need this type of attention. He didn't need it. You know, he was man enough.
Well, that jumped out of the box. I wasn't expecting that at all. Is Mr. Miles trying to say she was fooling around with other guys? I guess we'll see. While he went on to tell the judge how he heard about Ms. Murphy's cheating affairs, she called him a liar by saying this.
That's a lie. When I was talking to him, I was only talking to him because I was so busy about how am I going to get back to his house? How am I going to get over there and see him? I really liked him at the time that we were seeing each other. I was not talking to anybody. All that he's saying is a lie.
The truth, bombs just keep dropping. Did she just say he was sleeping with one of her family members? Oh, Mr. Miles has some serious explanations to give, but trust me, it even gets worse. Mr. Miles goes on to tell the judge that he was actually in a sexual relationship with the same family member who told him things about Ms. Murphy.
So you were
Never
in a
did
sexual relationship with a family member?
Correct, and she knew that.
Before
Your
you
Honor.
two had a sexual relationship?
Your Honor.
Yes, and she was fully aware of
And
that.
what did that person say specifically?
She told me specifically, I don't know why you're dealing with Tanisha.
Mr. Miles is making some serious allegations against Ms. Murphy. Could they just be allegations? Or does Ms. Murphy actually have some skeletons in her cupboard? Well, the judge turned to Ms. Murphy and asked her to give her own side of the story. And this was how she began her story about what happened.
I never knew that he was dealing with any of my family. That's ridiculous.
Were you dating, seeing Mr. Miles exclusively, or were you all in an open relationship?
I never knew about it being an open relationship.
At least we know one thing. These two can never agree on anything. It's from one argument to the next. Moving on, the next piece of evidence Mr. Miles had was the fact that he claimed Ms. Murphy smelt like sex on one of the days she came over to his house.
My evidence is this, okay? Every male and female know what sex smells like. She came over to my house smelling like she had sex with somebody. You can tell she was potent. I'm just keeping it real.
I came over your house.
Let me know that she was getting around was the fact that every single time she was around.
I mean, Judge Lauren is right. Mr. Miles did not have any concrete evidence to show that she was actually messing around with another man. Anyway, Mr. Miles had a witness, and it was none other than his wife. This is what she had to say when she took the stand.
I know nothing about Tanisha or Takori at all.
Right.
I found out, we got together in 2012. I found out in 2013.
And so when you found out, that was just a year ago that you found out.
Right.
Wow. So, there are other baby mamas in the picture. Mr. Miles has been one busy man, all right? They kept yelling and arguing at the top of their voices, and Judge Lauren just had enough.
I'm trying to tell you all are way off path to something constructive. Everything is leading us in the wrong direction, and when we should be leading to trying to find some type of answer.
They got on her nerves really well. Anyway, enough with all their arguments and rants. The judge had enough and decided to reveal the results of the DNA test. This was how it went.
Mr. Kiba, Miles, you are his father.
Thank you. I have no reason to lie. I have no reason to lie. That is such a relief. Not by myself, but by myself. You know what I'm saying? He don't have to do nothing if he don't want to do it.
Mr. Kiesel was in court, claiming that the results would either break or save his marriage. After his wife told him that there was a chance he might not be the father of their child, he dragged her to court in the hopes of proving that he was the father. He began his case like this.
Mr. Kiesel, you say your marriage depends on today's paternity results after after your wife announced that the child she is currently pregnant with may not be yours. You are here to prove you are the father and save your family. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Just 1 month into the marriage, and she has already cheated on him? Now that's wild. Without wasting any time, the judge asked Mrs. Kiesel what in the world made her cheat on her husband just 1 month into their marriage. This was her explanation.
It's been 1 month after your wedding day.
We really rushed into a relationship. We had been dating on and off, but it was back and forth with my ex and him. We both have broke up a couple of times over while we were dating. And then when we got married, it just...
Now, that is just disappointing to hear. A couple of weeks after she had cheated on her husband, she found out she was pregnant. Mrs. Kiesel claimed that she and her husband were trying to have a baby, and when the test came out positive, they were both excited.
And I happened to take one, and it was positive. And at first, I was really, happy and excited. And then just a couple seconds later, it hit me that I'm about to have to tell him something, no husband wants to hear.
So you found out you were pregnant first, and then you knew you had to tell your husband.
One can only imagine how heartbreaking the news must have been when Mr. Kiesel found out. Well, you are about to find out. After Mrs. Kiesel was done telling her side of the story, she asked Mr. Kiesel to tell his side, and this was what he said to the judge.
It was crushing. We'd been trying for a while, and she was in the bathroom. She walked out crying and told me she was pregnant, and I asked why she was crying, and she told me that there's a possibility that I might not be the father. And that's just, I broke down myself, and it was heartbreaking that this thing that was supposed to be great, we'd been trying.
You can't argue with the judge on that one. Those dates are too close. Despite the dates being close to each other and the fact that she actually cheated on him, Mr. Kiesel still believed he was the father of the baby, and he gave his reason by saying,
the child's father.
I do, Your Honor.
Tell the court why.
We have a nose that looks a lot alike. Mine goes down and then bubbles at the end, and with the ultrasounds that we had, the child had the same kind of nose.
You believe by looking at this ultrasound.
For her sake, let's pray Mr. Kiesel ends up being the father of her child. Mr. Kiesel told the judge that he believed the baby looked like him because he saw similar features he had on the baby during an ultrasound.
I have a cleft chin, and in some of the pictures, it's a little hard to see, but it's a very dominant trait. And I was born with bilateral clubfoot, and my father was, and my two brothers were as well, so it seems to run in my family. Whenever we were going through ultrasounds and having that done.
Moving on, the judge decided to bring in an expert to explain if the features Mr. Kiesel saw in the baby were actually the same features he had. Even after the expert gave her explanation, Mr. Kiesel was still convinced he was the father of the child.
At about 20 weeks, we do an anatomic scan of the fetus, and we look for abnormalities. So from the picture that we've seen, the still shot, the 2D shot of the foot, it's not possible to tell yes or no.
Because the court did give you the scans we received, and you were able to review those.
Correct.
Well, there's no need to beat around the bush. The results are in, and the truth about the paternity of the child is about to be revealed. Who is the father of the child? Now it is time to find out.
Mr. Kiesel, you are the father. I know that has to feel good.
I'm sorry. A little bit.
How's it feel, sir?
Amazing.
Mr. Adams could go to jail today for not paying child support if the court determines he is the father of Ms. Williams' kid. He has been prohibited by law from leaving his state, so he has joined this session through video conferencing. The defendant, Ms. Williams, says that Mr. Adams' legal issues are his own fault and his mother's. Well, it all begins like this.
Your Honor, my son is now facing jail because of this situation.
This very moment, you're concerned that he could be arrested for failure to pay child support for a child that both of you have doubts is even his child.
True, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Judge of Character. Ms. Williams agrees that it was not a committed relationship and was basically an off and on thing. But does that not mean she cannot be sure that he is the father since she has slept with so many men? Well, Ms. Williams says their doubt is valid, but somehow Mr. Adams is the one who has been forced to run from the law.
It's a possibility. I never, said, oh, you are the father or you gonna take care of this baby or nothing like that.
He could be arrested at any point for child support support may or may not be his.
He said I'm hungover. He was giving me excuses, basically. It wasn't for no money at all.
No one ever wants to be at fault for these sorts of things. However, Ms. Williams has a whole lot more to share, and that makes this case one of the messiest ones to have ever appeared in paternity court.
When you got pregnant, you didn't even include Mr. Adams in this equation.
No, I didn't.
You thought it was your ex's. And your ex
I
said,
did.
well, it's mine too, and you all went through this whole process, but then you had a test, it was not your ex's. So immediately then you said it was Mr. Adams.
Yes.
So it is an open and shut case, then. If the baby does not belong to her ex, then it must surely belong to Mr. Adams, right? Well, that is not quite how things work over here in paternity court. Cases get a lot more complex than that. So how did Mr. Adams get into this legal problem? Well, Ms. Willems said she knew that he was her baby daddy for sure, so she went to the state to get help.
Okay, but you said, I don't want child support, I don't want any of this, but it got to the point where you needed help, and so you went to the state.
Yes.
And then during that time, you had to name who the potential father could be.
Yes, I did.
And you gave the state his name.
Yes, I did.
And then he was ordered to go to court.
Yes, he was.
And that is how it went. Mrs. Adams here says she once overheard Ms. Williams tell her daughter that Mr. Adams was not the father of her child, and Ms. Williams says that never happened. And here is how she puts it.
I wouldn't have never came to your son. A possibility is a possibility. I never said no, and I never said he was the father.
You said no. Another situation, we was in a department store and I seen her. She was with a guy. She was around 9 months pregnant.
Well, let us hope that Ms. Willems is really not lying, because that could be extremely embarrassing. Of course, Mrs. Adams says that this makes her doubtful that the child is for her son, and honestly, it makes me doubtful too. Well, it is time for the truth, because Mr. Adams is now alleging some really troubling things.
Well, actually, Your Honor, I do feel like it was other people as well.
What evidence you have to suggest that?
My mother told me that she talked to Miss Williams and that Miss Williams stated that she had some other guys tested as well.
That was my ex I had tested. There were no other guys. It was just one.
It's just the ex, right? Okay then, if you say so, Ms. Willems. Mrs. Adams and Ms. Williams have been quite cordial up until this point, but something sparks between them, and then they start shouting at each other in court.
If she would have known who the father of her child was from jump, it don't matter. If that child is the child of my son, it'll be my grandson.
Okay, I'm a single mother. And I'm a single mother.
Stop stripping
I'm a single mother. I sure did shake my butt. Yes, I did. And I took care of my son at the end of the day.
There is surely no love lost between these two. Anyway, it is time to get this over with and see if Ms. Willems has been lying all this while. Is Mr. Adams the father, or is the father another man?
That Mr. Adams is not the father.
Take me off child support, baby.
Mr. Adams, you done come to the wrong courtroom clowning. This is not a joke. Your future was on the line.
Mr. Hunter caught Ms. Davies in the act of cheating on him and then called off his wedding to her. He is also now disputing the paternity of Ms. Davies' son, Jaden, and believes he is not the father. Ms. Davies says all of this is a lie, and Mr. Hunter is basically seeing ghosts. Here is how Ms. Davies begins her case.
Ms. Davies, you say that after being with Mr. Hunter for 5 years, he's now given into lies and rumors about your past, scrapped your wedding plans, and is now denying your son Jaden. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Hunter, you say you've never fully accepted that Jaden is your son because Ms. Davies has a questionable past. In fact, you say you believe you even caught her in the act of cheating on you.
This sounds like a really confident woman. A woman as confident as Ms. Davies can surely not be lying about the paternity of her child, right? Such weird things never happen in paternity court, right? Right? Anyway, Ms. Davies says she is not the cheat in this relationship, and the cheat is actually Mr. Hunter.
But then I started finding text messages, phone calls from other females. So at that point of the relationship, Your Honor, I no longer trusted him at all.
Well, I found messages from in her phone too, same thing. So that's why I started doing the things I was doing.
Messages from whom?
Messages like, when you coming out, can I come get you? When we gonna hang out?
From men?
Yes, from men.
Ms. Davies, were you entertaining other men?
Oh, so both of them just continued cheating cheating on one another. That cannot be healthy, but Ms. Davies has a good reason for cheating on her husband. Yes, she actually does, if you can believe it. And she does us the favor of sharing that reason with us.
Then I decided that, okay, two can play that game, and I decided to go out and talk to someone else.
Now, once you did that, what happened?
Well, once I did, I briefly had a relationship with the guy. We were sexually together a few times.
Did you use
Why
protection?
she was with me?
A couple times we did not, Your Honor.
All right. So that's pretty much why we're here.
Yes.
Well, she did not sleep with the man. She was just sexually in contact with him. Anyway, Ms. Davies soon got pregnant off that one sexual contact, and now we have got to ask the million-dollar question. How does she know that the baby belongs to Mr. Hunter instead of some other man? Let us hear from her.
I was 100% sure at the time, but I wanted Devon to be the father because he has been there in my life for, at this time, we've been together like 2.5 years.
All right, so now we're getting honest now, and
Right.
that's what we're here to do.
Right.
The truth is when you told him you wanted him to be,
Yes.
but you didn't know for certain.
Yes, Your Honor.
When she told you she was pregnant, Mr. Hunter, how about you? What did you feel in that moment?
Immediately I said I have doubt.
At least we are now getting some sorely needed truths in this building. Mr. Hunter says he immediately had paternity doubts when she told him she was pregnant. He based this doubt on rumors and things he had heard and seen himself. So, what did this man hear and see that made him doubt that his partner was carrying his baby?
People tell me that she been hanging out, hopping in and out of cars, you know what I mean? I had a friend that told me they went to a party one time and she hooked up with some guy at the party. That was around the time when the baby was finna be conceived.
You're not denying it. You're just smirking, Miss Davies. What's the story?
I did go to parties, but as far as me hooking up with the guys at a party, that is false, Your Honor.
Well, maybe that is false, Ms. Davies, but you literally just told us now that you had sexual contact several times with another man. So Mr. Hunter is right to have a mountain of paternity doubts. Mr. Hunter has another interesting story for us.
I'm at her house, right? She let me stay over her house. I had been drinking, so I want to go lay down, right? I accidentally fall asleep longer than I'm supposed to, so she's thinking I'm gone. She brings another guy and another girl upstairs into the room while I'm in there. So then she makes me leave.
That is true, Your Honor. That's true.
Okay.
That is true.
Now,
Well, explain that.
Wait, I was kind of wrong. Mr. Hunter should not have a mountain of paternity doubts. He should have several mountains of one and maybe a C or two as well. Ms. Davies kind of explains it away, but her explanation is not quite helpful. Just listen to her.
And I did let him come over because he was drinking. He said he needs to sleep it off for a while. So I'm thinking he's gone. And so I did come with the guy and the girl to my house and my room.
What were you bringing the guy and the girl in your room to do?
Your Honor,
We all know what that's finna do.
we did plan on having sexual encounter. Me and the guy and the girl.
So there are now at least two different guys in the equation, and somehow Ms. Davies insists that her son belongs to Mr. Hunter. She gets so upset about everything that she starts to cry. And that just makes Mr. Hunter tell the court even more embarrassing stories. Listen to him go.
You can't be too hurt right now, 'cause it's not the first time. I caught her in the kitchen. We sitting in the living room one day, and then she gets up and walks to the kitchen, and she's in the kitchen for like maybe 10, 15 minutes. She's supposed to came back already. I walk around to the kitchen, and she's damn near standing in between this guy's legs. Like, you know what I mean? What is that about?
What is this about? Because you say it
That's like
hurts
it's
to hear
numerous times.
you say, hold on now, Mr. Hunter, because you're not innocent, but I'm more concerned about Ms. Davies in this moment.
You know what? We have heard enough. It is time to check out the DNA test results and see what is actually going on here. Is Ms. Davies just a big fat liar, or is Mr. Hunter just trying to run from his responsibilities?
Mr. Hunter, you are not the father.
I told you.
I'm very sorry.
Don't cry now.
Oh my God.
Ms. Davies, are we to assume that this other gentleman is Jaden's biological father, the one you spoke about in your testimony, or is there someone else? Let's be honest.
No, there's no one else, Your Honor. I know the other guy has to be the father.